y'all. This is Minding Your Amygdala Podcast, and I am Dr. Alauna, and we're going to be doing things a little bit differently this year. Hey. This is my jam. I love this background. All right, y'all. I am Dr. Alauna. This is the Minding Your Amygdala podcast. If you are joining me or whatever platform you're joining me on, whether or not it's LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, do me a favor and click that subscribe button so that you can receive these podcasts and you can be notified about them when they drop. If you have not noticed, it's been a little while since our last Minding Your Amygdala episode, and that was intentional. I needed a break. Y'all know how it goes. Life has been lifing, okay? Life has been lifing, as I am sure that it has been lifing for you. But I wanted to reinvigorate this platform and make sure that I'm actually adding my voice to some really important conversations because it feel like the world is going nuts. Is it me? Is it just me? No? Okay. All right. So understanding that there's a lot of things happening and I'm always kind of, I have to be honest with you all. I'm really not a people person. Folks get surprised about that because I'm a psychiatrist and I have a bubbly personality and I love people. I love them individually. I love it when I could just see people one-on-one and nobody ever even had to know that I was part of people's lives. They could walk past me in the grocery store and look at me and they don't even have to speak because patient privacy. I'm like, cool, that works for me. But that's not my life anymore. I'm retired from clinical medicine. And in part, that allows me to be able to help more people now, because I think the most important thing that we can do these days is to educate ourselves about mental health and mental health concepts, because that is so crucial to what we're dealing with in the world today. So before I get launched into a bunch of material and get into our topic today, which is confirmation bias, I just want to invite you to take a breath. Taking a breath is one of the fastest ways to help reset yourself, to help settle yourself. And as you all know, I call myself the skills over pills doc. Okay. So I believe that the more that we practice skills, the more that we practice controlling our own emotional state and regulating this animal that we all are operating in, the healthier we will be as a society. So make taking a breath part of your everyday practice. Make just taking a moment to reset yourself part of your toolbox, if you will, for dealing with the emotions and your daily mental health. Okay? All right. So the topic of the day and what I really want to, as I bring back this podcast and I continue to make content, one thing that I'll share with you is that it is a challenge for me every day to push past my own health stuff, push past my own mental health challenges and anxieties, push past all of the chaos that's going on in the world, push past the fatigue and the just all the stuff to just come here before you today. Okay. Understand that everybody that's moving around in this world today, they're having a tough time. Why? Because that's how life is set up. We have had a world that has had some false concept that if we have enough money, things will be smooth and easy, or if you just have a certain position in the world, or if you're a certain gender, we have this tendency to imagine that when things look good to us from the outside, that person is okay. But I have news for you. They're not okay. They're not okay. Even if they look okay, everybody is going through some stuff. And understand that that is part of our evolution process that we have to go through right now, is beginning to recognize what mental health is and how many of society's issues and challenges stem from a lack of understanding our own mental health. I'm not saying other people's mental health. I'm talking about yours. I know y'all. Let's stop trying. I know you. Somebody came to mind. Your cousin, your brother, your sister. You're like, yeah, my auntie. She needs to see somebody. Yeah, talk to my my baby daddy and tell him he need to go to therapy. I tell him that all the time. Guess what? I'm not talking about him today, and I'm not talking about her today. I'm talking about you. You. Now, the reason that I say that is because, anytime you're talking to Dr. Alauna, Dr. Alauna, make sure you spell my name right when you're searching on the platforms. Dr. Alauna, Dralauna, trauma psychiatrist. I'm here to tell you how you are designed, because I want you to understand yourself and how powerful each and every single one of us human creators are to create things in our own experience and then blame every damn body else. Yeah, I cuss. I try to hold it back, but y'all, you listen. I sometimes I do that because I need you to understand what I'm saying. Confirmation bias is the strongest human bias. It's not implicit bias, which, this is not going to be a DEI talk. There's this whole war on DEI right now, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is absolutely insane if you think about it. Like, why do we not want diversity in a world that is objectively diverse? Why would we not want to include multiple thought processes so that we not only learn not to intentionally offend or damage each other, but we also connect to people outside of our own narrow space? But nonetheless, when we're talking about biases, I think a lot of people get caught up in explicit and implicit bias, and whether or not we favor a gender, or favor a visual element like our skin tone and our ethnicity. And we're animals. We're human animals. And so we should understand that human animals learn to recognize their tribes, learn to be comfortable with certain things. And so we are often drawn to what we are taught and programmed to think is better. And the programming starts as babies, and all of the things we run into as we go through this world. So however our biases have been imparted, they come from deep learning and deep conditioning that is repeatedly presented to us over and over again. That's how we have these deeply programmed biases. And on top of that, our human animal is very good at pattern finding, pattern recognition. It's what we do best. And we do it so well that we even find patterns and make conclusions about them that are not completely accurate. And so here we find the concept of confirmation bias. Now, thank you for joining today. I hope this is connecting with you. And if you have questions, if you want to make comments, you can drop them in the comment section, and I'll try to reply to as many of them as I can. All I ask is that you be respectful. And even if you hear something that you don't agree with, we can discuss, but we're not going to argue about it. Okay. So in this space, we are going to, where I will be happy to answer as many questions as I can. And then also you have more opportunities to learn from me, which I'll tell you more about as we go. So coming back to what is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is where the human brain decides that it's on I'm right mode. That's the best way, that's the simplest way I can explain it. We are programmed to think that as information comes into our ears, our eyes, we soak up data from our environment, and it has to get calculated in our brain. And this human brain then kicks out conclusions, and you are kicking out conclusions at every moment, every second of the day. That's how our brain literally processes information. So we are interpreting the world every single day through a distorted lens. We have a tendency to think, today you've been going around and you probably haven't not once asked yourself, did I interpret the way that that person walked across the room and did that thing? Is that what I thought it was? Was that why they did it? Or did I just draw a conclusion and then my brain goes with it? Right? And that's often what we do. And if you've had the experience, I was coaching someone the other day and they said, I was having a disagreement with my partner, and then I went back and asked what he was upset about, and what he was mad about was completely different than what I thought that he was upset about. It's like, really? That's what it was? And those incidents, those moments where we misinterpret the world around us, where we misapply our own thought process to what we are seeing from the outside in other people, those moments happen constantly. But our brain is set in a mode where we think that what we have interpreted and how the conclusions that we have drawn are accurate, until we then become challenged with considering that maybe I don't have the full story. Maybe I'm drawing conclusions off of a very tiny amount of information. And that is confirmation bias, because then when I think something is right and my brain says, yes, this is the right thing, then I get a flood of chemicals in my body. My amygdala goes off and says, yes, that's right. I love being right. Other chemicals in my body, dopamine that floods into my brain reward system that I get addicted to. And we love the sensation of being right. And then we now live in a society where it's very easy to find someone who will agree with you, even if your conclusion is off. Now, here is where technology is clashing, the external technology that is accelerating faster than us understanding our internal technology. Every single human being on earth operates in a teeny tiny bubble of perception. And none of us have the entire picture. There's now over 8 billion human beings alive right now, and we're adding some every day. So when people talking about this population crash, the earth is full of human beings, and all of us have a tendency to believe that the way we are perceiving the world around us is accurate and that we are right. And then when we come across other people who say something that is either similar to what we think already or that makes sense to us, if we want to believe them, then we go, yes, that's right. And our bodies go, that feels so good. And then we take on that belief and we carry that belief forward. Now, that does not mean that that belief is based in evidence. And in fact, as human beings in our society, if you live in a community or a religious group or a culture that believes a certain way, there's plenty of things around you that people will use as evidence that their version is accurate. Y'all didn't think we was going to get into religion today, but we got to do it, because we're talking about the things that are dividing society right now. And in part, our divisions are because everyone thinks that their version is so accurate and it's the right one. And matter of fact, I'll kill you dead if you believe otherwise. Boy, humans been killing in the name of God for a long time. And then got the nerve to try to blame it on Lucifer Beelzebub. Y'all a trip. All I see is a bunch of amygdalas running around. Excuse me. All right. So now, as we consider what confirmation bias does to us, when you find someone who is delivering information, if it's not coming from a trusted source, right? If it's not coming from someone that fits a version that your brain says, yes, I receive information from them, then you might downplay good doggone information. You might actually devalue correct and accurate evidence. Looking at our justice system right now and our political divides, because we got to talk about it. We got to keep it real. There are so many people who are believing false information, even when you have evidence that multiple people over time have looked at this thing and drawn a objective conclusion. It is because of confirmation bias. Because if it's coming from a source that I trust less, and a source that I want to trust more is telling me something, I will devalue the accurate information and uphold the false information because it dings my doorbell. Dopamine, ding. I feel better. I feel good when you tell me something that makes me right. Cause man, we love being right. I'm still debating on this, but I think that being right might be the strongest human addiction. You tell me what y'all think about that. We have a lot of things we're addicted to. Sex, salt, sugar, each other. But being right, something about being right feels so good. Okay? So listen, why does confirmation bias cause so much division? Because you can end up siloed in psychosis. Siloed in psychosis. Psychosis meaning disconnected from objective shared reality. Because in confirmation, first of all, we got to talk about beliefs. We got to talk about how important it is for you to begin to examine your beliefs, because your beliefs drive your decision making. Your beliefs drive whether you interpret something as right or wrong. Your beliefs are operative. That's how powerful you as a human creator are. Anybody who attends any of my teaching, for example, I have my trauma cure event coming up in October. We're in our early bird season. So if you're interested, definitely, I will give you the information in just a little bit. But understand that you will hear multiple times from me that you are an animal, human, and spirit. Everything that you do, you're not just doing. They've taught us to pay attention to this physical body. And we gotta, if you are a science nerd like me, you took all the classes about what this physical body is and what this world and this universe is. However, they left some very important stuff out. And we got about 0 hours of official education about invisible stuff called emotions. And they are there and they are present in all of us. Men don't have more, women don't have too many. These are all bull hooky. Okay. These we if you have a functional amygdala, and which if you're here right now, you have emotions. They're there. You can't deduct them from the equation. And if you try, you're just making yourself attempt to do something literally impossible. Okay, they are actually important. Your emotions are not to be ignored, they're to be paid attention to. They are the reason that this world is so distressing right now. That distress is an emotion. And it is because we have not learned to understand and control and interpret these very real things called emotions. So stick around, because, of course, I'm saying it's time to evolve. And everything that I do in the Dr. Alauna Trauma Recovery Institute, whether it's this Minding Your Amygdala podcast, the Trauma Cure event, or any other thing that we do, I am trying to make the point to you that you have far more control over your emotions, your thoughts, your behaviors, and your actions than what you've ever been taught. But because it was not known until now, we did not have the technology to understand these things. And now we do. So I hope that you tune in and continue to follow this program and check out my other program on blackdoctor.org, which is called Demystifying Mental Health. And we do this work so that you can do better. That's really all this is that you need to understand your body and your biology in order to pop the bubble that puts all of us in danger of confirmation bias, because we are not experiencing the world accurately. It's impossible. Each one of us are having a relatively subjective experience. Even you and I in this conversation, you will interpret my words slightly different. Your brain will call up a different situation than another person's brain who might be listening to this very same thing. So understanding that even though what we see on the surface is our physical body, there is a invisible world that you need to tune into in order to be healthy. in order to understand what your biology is doing so that you can regulate what comes out of your primitive ass. Excuse me, I mean primitive animal. Primitive animal. Okay. So if you're enjoying this program, before I forget, let me ask you to share this with somebody. There is somebody who needs to hear this because this is going to be the foundation for healing some conversations with some family members that have some different beliefs, from healing some colleagues and coworkers, understanding that we all move around with confirmation bias and that it is not other people's jobs to recognize it. Even though other people will help you recognize it, you must start challenging yourself and the people around you to consider how to operate with empathy. And once again, that empathy thing, mm, is good stuff, because empathy, which, let me define it, because we have so many different ways that we think about this concept. I'm not just talking about empathy in terms of psychological and emotional awareness and being very connected to other people, spiritually or emotionally, and really being able to feel what's going on with them. That's one level. But if we crank that knob up, empathy is being able to take the experience of others, to not have to live their life, to be able to imagine what it might be like to be in their experience, not just in their shoes, not applying your thought process to what's going on with them, but trying to get into how do they think? How did they hear me? What are they seeing when they're experiencing me? Am I really operating as honestly and truthfully as I think I am? You'll find when you pay attention that the answer is no, because this biology is so powerful that it has been pushing us on autopilot. Your primitive brain is so strong and is doing so much in you that you don't even realize that you are subject to being pulled left, right, up, and down by your biases without you even realizing it. So we no longer can operate in a society that doesn't understand how we work, right? This is kindergarten stuff, but we're scratching our heads about why we've allowed people who are extremely destructive, fear based, primitive, and violent to lead our societies. So, this is not, the situation that we're in America and across the world is not just happening uh, because of the world around us. It's happening because we ourselves have made choices that have empowered people in the absence of understanding mental health, mental illness, and even our own mess. So, as I get to this space where I'm looking at the world today and it looks so strange, and so many people are scratching their head like, what's wrong with people when it comes to gun violence, when it comes to crime, when it comes to the economy, healthcare, every issue, war, our constant need for violence in our entertainment, that then translates to our real lives, that then translates to the way we deal with each other geopolitically. This really goes back to um, us dividing ourselves into tribes. It's important to actually go back and remind ourselves what it means that we've made so much of the concept of race when there is only one human race. Like, I think and this is going to actually be the topic of our next episode of Demystifying Mental Health, is really thinking about racial trauma and how to heal from the trauma of racism, not just from the standpoint of the horrific things that we know have been done to our ancestors, but also really thinking about how did that trickle down into the way that we think and conceptualize. And this is for any person, of any ethnicity, any physical characteristics. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that you have been taught to think certain things about certain groups of people, that in your mind, your confirmation bias will say, well, we're better. You may not realize that you're doing this, but you're thinking to yourself, my religion is better, my practices are better, even if it's not religion. My tribe is better, my team is better, my party, my political party is better. Right? In our brains, we love making judgments. I love it when people's like, I don't judge people. I'm like, only God can judge. I'm like, yes, exactly. It's exactly right. You're judging. Watch yourself. See it. That's the identity work that we have to do on ourselves, is recognizing how our brain is so powerful to project what we believe, such that even when people give us good doggone information, good objective feedback, we will find a way to say, you know what, I don't really believe that, because it didn't come from, I don't believe all those, y'all go to college and do all that stuff and read all those books, and somebody taught them and somebody taught you, so they probably didn't know what they're talking about, because something new is going to be learned later. I heard this, I'm literally quoting from a podcast that I heard earlier where they were talking about Neil Tyson deGrasse and his very intricate breakdown of his assessment of the work of, what's his name, the Terrence Howard. Okay. And he basically broke down like why science and peer review and feedback and replicability is essential in drawing conclusions. And unless those things are a part of your work and other people can understand and replicate it to prove it to be such, then what you're doing is just spouting theories and not grounding them in scientific research and observation and process. And so many people these days, have y'all noticed how folks become an expert on stuff all of a sudden? And you're like, whoa, how did you know all this about, all of a sudden you know about vaccines, huh? You paid attention in science. You went to college. You didn't? Okay. No, you didn't like that. All right, that's cool. How you think you know so much about politics now? You're an expert on Palestinian and Israeli history. My God, like just last week you were an expert on cars. How are you an expert on all these things? Now you making laws about healthcare and abortion. Really? Okay. That's the function of confirmation bias. Too many people have lost the ability to understand their lane. Okay? It's your lane. Your lane is your problem. Hey, and we have lanes. There are some things that I am extremely good at, but I know I have to know where my knowledge base stops. And in fact, I have to, and if you are a person who knows a lot, then it's important for you to also recognize that that means there's a whole lot more that you don't know. Because for all the things that we know in human history and the way the world works, every time we get to that next step, we unravel a deeper level and a deeper understanding of things. I'll use the example that Neil used of how when people had seizures back in the day, 100, 200 years ago, before we had EEGs and MRIs and other scans, they would take them to the church. They would take them to the priest, like, give them the exorcism, please. Or, they take a lobe out. If they did manage to get to the psychiatrist back then, they'd give them a lobotomy sometimes, right? This is before they had the knowledge and the updated understanding and the technology to, now if somebody's having a seizure, most of the time we're going to try to get them to some medical services, or at least I would hope. Right. And it's this way because we now have a common collective knowledge of what these things are. As in terms of mental health, humans are in the dark ages. In terms of our understanding of mental health and who we are and how this brain operates and how powerful it is to produce results in the greatest technology on earth, you and me and we, understanding that creates this space where we tell ourselves one thing, we tell ourselves what we want to believe, and we don't weigh, am I existing in confirmation bias? The answer is yes. The challenge is, how do I find the instances where I am putting, as I would say, put some stank on it when no stank should be there, right? Because confirmation bias, our brain will read into things and draw conclusions and give us the sensations of rightness. But this means that even when you're walking around every day and you actually think that you're just, like, I don't have any mental health challenges. Guess what? The way humans are designed, every single one of us has a big mental health challenge, which is to understand when we are being inaccurate in our thinking. And it's happening constantly to all of us. Some of us more than others, right? Some of us have really sailed off into a alternative reality because the addiction to someone feeding you information and things that you think you want to hear and see. It's basically your brain. Just so we talk about these social media algorithms and how if you look at something, then it's just going to keep feeding you more things along that same line and then take you places because of that algorithm. The same thing happens in our brain. We have an algorithm that starts to take us in a certain direction. And if we don't understand our primitive brain and how much our mind can hone in on what we think we want to explore and where we think we want to go, that reticular activating system, by the way, we'll talk more about that another time. But that's it, y'all. That's the episode for today. This is me jumping on, doing things a little bit differently. So this will be uploaded to the different podcast outlets. So you can find it on Spotify. It'll be on Apple Podcast platform, so on and so forth. And I'm going to try to do these more often. So I hope you liked it. If you enjoyed it, please like this on whatever platform you're watching on, and make sure that you subscribe. And also you can get tickets to that Trauma Cure event that we talked about. The Trauma Cure stands for Creators Using Radical Empathy. And in that 3-day program in October, I teach you about how to challenge yourself to understand more deeply your brain biology and how it impacts your behavior. So I hope to see you there. And thank you for joining me for this episode of Minding Your Amygdala, a Brain, Body, and Behavior podcast. I'll see you next time. Toodles.